Hi everyone, in this video I'm talking about the economic and social life of the United States in the early Cold War 1950s period. And the great challenge for the country at this time is the challenge of transitioning to a post-war economy. How do you prevent mass unemployment when you're relieving multiple soldiers from their national service? And we have accounts that military factories the day after peace was declared in World War II start laying off thousands of workers. And so you have this situation where people who have been working for the war effort, for a wage, of course, that their experience of the war ending is losing their jobs. And so Truman is trying to prevent this. He tries to increase unemployment insurance across the country, and he tries to maintain and increase public housing projects. So these are kind of like New Deal programs, scaled back a little bit, but are designed to ease the economy into integrating all these people who've been serving in the armed forces back into public life. We see after his re-election that Truman even proposes what he calls his Fair Deal, further programs that are building on the New Deal that include national health insurance, federal education subsidies, farming subsidies, and these are blocked by a combination of Southern Democrats and Republicans who are opposed to Truman's policies. But it kind of shows you how Truman was trying to navigate this tricky post-war economic situation. He was trying to prevent a sort of economic collapse in the United States, in which had happened after World War I. Another way in which Truman continues to try and ease this transition is through the passing of the GI Bill. GI, of course, stands for General Infantryman, but here refers broadly to veterans who have served in the US Armed Forces during World War II. And this bill provided money to support American veterans. American veterans could now have their education paid for and go to college. This, of course, stimulated the education system. You have a huge rise, more than double the number of graduates each year that happens in the United States in the early 50s. So this GI Bill is stimulating the economy by paying for American veterans to go to college. And this in turn is stimulating the educational economy, and also by allowing veterans to take out mortgages, even to take out mortgages with no loans. And so the GI Bill was a way of easing servicemen back into civilian life, but also a way of trying to stimulate the American economy. At the same time, we see that marriage rates and birth rates for Americans are going through the roof. You've had a century of decline, steady decline of American birth rates, and that changes in the 1950s. And instead, you have a rapid increase. People are getting married. The average age for a woman to get married in the 50s was 19 years old. This gives rise to families of 3 and 4 children. And along with this optimism, we see a rise in wages that's being stimulated by all these projects that the federal government is carrying out. And this in turn leads to still more consumerism in American culture and in the American economy. The American wages for the average household, take-home pay for the average household is increasing, and this means that Americans want to be able to buy something with this money. And buying becomes a sort of secular religion. Consumerism, buying things, it starts to become a source of satisfaction. And so we start to find growing amounts of purchasing and also growing amounts of debt. It's paradoxical, but as Americans have more money, they spend more money. And even they start to spend money that they don't have. The thing that Americans most wanted to buy during this period was a house. Remember that we can go as far back as we want in American history, and we find this dream of owning a house, owning your own land. And the number of American homeowners almost doubles. Actually, it doesn't double, but it increases by about 50% during this period. And most of these people who are buying houses for the first time start to buy them in the suburbs. So we have this new phenomenon, the growth of suburbia, the creation of planned communities, mass-produced houses that could be built very cheaply, and communities that could be built away from the pollution and the dirt of the inner cities, and these kind of utopian communities. And so there are more Americans than ever before. There's this huge rise in marriage rates and birth rates. The children that are born of these marriages in the 40s and 50s are called baby boomers, part of this baby boom after the war. They are going to be a huge generation that, in demographic terms, that has a huge influence on the modern United States. Americans are also wealthier. And so they are buying more things, including in particular homes. They're buying homes in the suburbs. Within these marriages, there is certainly a glorification of the role as the wife, as the homemaker. And this is where you have the American suburban dream, that Americans, you own a house in the suburbs, it's very safe, the husband goes to work every day, the wife stays at home, takes care of the children, takes care of the pets. But what we do know is that the number of women in the workforce continues to rise during this period. So at the same time as being a stay-at-home mom is certainly the goal of most women during this period, certainly seen as the ideal by the culture during this period, the number of women who are working does continue to rise. There is also during this period a religious boom. More and more Americans become religious than they've been before. So I think kind of what we're seeing here is a country that's looking for an identity, that's come through the struggles of World War I and World War II, is wealthier than ever before, and is trying to understand what that means. And on one level, on one side, we see this very materialistic consumerism that's trying to find meaning by purchasing stuff, especially houses. On another side, we see a rise in religious affiliations, that more people are associated with churches than ever before. This is the period where you see one nation under God and in God we trust being added to the Pledge of Allegiance, being established as the national motto of the United States. So some people try and find meaning in the midst of this wealth by turning to religion, and it's a very optimistic interpretation of Christianity. Throughout American history, you see different interpretations of Christianity develop. This is a very positive one that reflects kind of the positive nature of the times. Things are good, people are making money, people are living in new houses. If you believe in God and follow Christianity, then there's no limit to the success you can enjoy. So materialism, religion, very optimistic religion, and then finally also rebellion. That there's also an understanding of this generation that's growing up after the war, this generation that's survived the war, as one that's very kind of self-absorbed, that doesn't have a great cause like the World War, the struggle against Nazi tyranny, to establish its identity. And so instead is kind of obsessed with their own individual liberties and satisfaction. And so you see more permissive attitudes to recreational drugs, recreational sex. You see the rise of rock and roll music, which is associated with both of these phenomena. And so this is the third response to the wealth of the 50s, the aftermath of World War II, the rebellion against social morals and social standards at the time.